Hello. Welcome to my channel Touching Stories. You're about to hear an amazing story about love and unexpected decisions. Enjoy watching.
They loved each other so much that they could not live a minute without each other. At least it seemed so to them. So the question of getting married was not even a question. They were happy without a stamp in their passports. It seemed to them that love could not be put within the framework of the law. Love was outside the law. If it is, it will be. And if it is not, then no law will help. It was Max and Emma who thought so. Their parents thought differently, and so under parental pressure, or rather under the pressure of one more active parent, Emma's father, they had to cement their love by legal marriage. For more than a year, Emma and Max lived together, just lived and did not think about the stamp in the passport at all. They were sure that forever together, and the stamp. Well, what a stamp. Well, parents want them to have this insignificant stamp in their passports, let it be. Especially Emma's parents insisted on registration, namely her father. When parents found out that Emma and Max rent an apartment and lived together for more than a year, Arthur came and seriously spoke about it. "You are a young man, it is clear. You what? Point my troll and left. Myself a man. I know how it happens. But where will she go? They will flap their tongues. They will say that she lived with someone who is not a wife, but so used her and left her. It's not our custom to register marriages, and it's not for you to cancel it. If you want a wedding, we'll do it. If you don't want it, we'll give you money and you'll go somewhere else." Wedding tours have become fashionable nowadays. So first the stamps, then the resort. Do you understand, Max? I won't let my daughter be used like the last. I get it. Although, Max wanted to say something, but who's gonna let him? When Arthur's around, he always has the last word, and he doesn't recognize any although. So, tomorrow we're going to the registry office, and there's no objection. No one has any objections, Max replied. We just hadn't thought about it. That's something Max shouldn't have said. When Emma's belly is bigger than her nose, then you'll think about it. These young people are irresponsible. If you're not smart enough, consult me while I'm alive. I won't give you bad advice. What do you think about the wedding? Dad, why are you yelling? Emma intervened. You'll scare Max, and he'll really run away from me. Emma tried to defuse the situation. I'll run away from him. Arthur smiled. He'll forget how to run forever. The future father-in-law laughed at his joke. Will there be a wedding or what? No wedding, replied Max. We'll just register. That's your opinion, and maybe my daughter wants, like all women, a white dress, limousines, gifts, and all that stuff. No, Dad, I don't want to. We're fine without the stuff. We'd rather go somewhere else. Well then, Arthur agreed. But I'm not leaving here until I see your passport stamped. That's it, my darlings. You'll have to put up with me. Dad, don't you believe us? How are we going to fit in a one-room apartment? My daughter was indignant. It's okay. We'll fit in, no offense. People live more cramped and still manage to have 5 children. Arthur laughed at his next joke. No, Daddy, you go home and we'll send you copies of our passports with stamps. There's no need to embarrass us, and besides, you snore. You'll sleep and Max and I will what? Listen to you snore. Why should we listen to it? You do not listen to snoring, and in the meantime conceive me grandchildren. Arthur laughed. Emma's father had bored Max so much in a few hours with his soldier jokes that he was ready to strangle his future father-in-law. He couldn't imagine how he would be able to put up with Arthur's military folklore for 2 months. Emma's father was a former military man, a retired lieutenant colonel. But as you know, there are no former military men, and therefore Arthur's commanding tone strained everyone, especially those who were not used to it. Max was also tense, so he was not going to wait until the marriage. 2 whole months, he hustled, found ways and exits to the civil registry office, paid off a sum of money to the one who needed it, and a week after the application was filed, he and Emma were registered. Yes, I did manage to stay with you longer, Arthur lamented, but I realized that you, Max, a real man, can achieve something when you're hot. When my father-in-law got hot enough to take me home, I got stamps in my passports. I'll send the money for the tour to Emma's card. Arthur was escorted solemnly all the way to the train station. What do I want to say to you, my children? Arthur began his paternal farewells, lived together, multiply, and laughed in his stupid manner. Only when the train had driven away the uninvited guests did the young people breathe a sigh of relief. "It takes a lot of courage to put up with your dad," Max summarized. "And imagine what it's like for me and my mom to put up with it all my life. That's why I left home to enroll here. I just couldn't breathe from his suffocating parental love." Now there's poor Katia, waiting for her school graduation, to sneak out from under daddy's oppression. Mommy's sorry, but she's cool with daddy's commands. I guess after all these years, she's used to them. Daddy's admonition to multiply went straight to God's ears. For more than a year, Emma and Max lived together and nothing. Emma did not get pregnant, and then this tour, for which Daddy gave them money, had a beneficial effect on the organisms of young people, and Emma got pregnant. They went to the 4th year. They still have to study and study, 2 whole years of study, and here it is, pregnancy. "Well, since it happened, we'll have a baby," Max said decisively and immediately, as if to reproach Emma. All with the easy hand of your father. He showed up, forced to register, gave money for vacation, and also wished, "Multiply." "Well, now at his command, we will multiply." "Who will?" Emma asked angrily. "We have 2 more years of school. I'm not taking a sabbatical to care for the baby. We're not having a baby. We're not having kids yet." "Emma, you said have a baby. They have pussycats and dogs, but the baby, it's already there. It's inside you and it probably hears us, that we're afraid of it and don't want it, and you're going to get rid of it." "No, Emma, let's have the baby. First, pregnancy. What if you lose the ability to give birth after the abortion? It happens. Don't get too excited. There's a new technology for this simple operation. We'll be fine. We don't need kids right now." "I don't know, Emma, but I want this baby. It's not his fault that we have 2 years of school. It's not his fault at all. He was born in you to be born and to live. Let's give him a chance to live, please." I said, "No, there will be no baby," Emma replied firmly. Max looked at her. At the moment, she reminded him of her father, just as uncompromising and sure of her rightness. Max was even frightened by her insistence. Usually, women wanted to keep a child, especially when their husband asked them to, but here she was calmly arguing for the extermination of their child. He was also afraid that Emma simply did not like children, as he had not noticed that she, like many women, was fascinated by children. He had heard of such women who were incapable of loving children and their own, who had no maternal feelings. Max wanted children, and not just one child, but 2 or 3. He was the only son of his parents, and he longed for a brother or sister. So he had long ago decided that he would have at least 2 children. What about Emma? What would she decide? They hadn't talked about children until today, and now it turned out she wanted to kill and would kill their child, and Max realized he couldn't stop it. We're a family. We need kids anyway. So why not now? Max's feeble attempt to talk his wife out of the abortion was killed by a barrage of emotion. "Stop it. Stop calling me the reason. I'm an adequate person and think adequately to our current situation. There's not gonna be a baby," Emma said as she said it. And the baby was gone. She came home, a little pale, but with a sense of duty. She had to do it, so she did it. For the first time, Max wasn't touched by her pallor. For the first time, he didn't feel sorry for her. And she didn't complain about the pain or anything else. Just lay there flipping through her phone, so calm, serene, as if nothing had happened, as if she'd just gotten a little headache and laid down to rest. She asked for a sweet tea, and Max gave her her favorite cheeky fruit, which she drank by the gallons. He turned away from her, not wanting to see children disposed of like that. "What's wrong, Max?" she asked, seeing his reaction. "Everything is wrong," he replied. "You killed a child and you're sitting there drinking tea. Neither in your face nor in your soul did I see a single drop of regret about it. What am I supposed to do? Bang my head against the wall? Don't exaggerate, don't sugarcoat it. There was no one left to kill, just a blood clot. Our blood that would have made a human being." "Enough," I said. Emma shouted, "It's done and there's nothing to talk about." She turned angrily to the wall, still scrolling through her phone. There was no more talk of the unborn child. They lived as they always had, and everything seemed to be the same as it had been before Emma's abortion. Max saw a different side of her, and he even began to doubt that they could ever have children. Other children they could give life to when Emma thought it rational, but that first baby had been denied life. Max didn't know what was in Emma's mind about their future children and was afraid to bring it up. After all that had happened, he thought for the first time, perhaps this is how understanding between loving people dies gradually, and then love dies. Emma hadn't expected Max's reaction to the abortion. She felt that something in him had changed. There was no former lightness, recklessness. He became serious. The legal marriage was to blame, Emma thought. As they became husband and wife, so Max began to build himself a father of the family. Just such a daddy children wanted. And she is not a female to give birth to children at his first whim. First of all, she had to finish her studies, find a decent job, that is, create a platform for children with diapers, and then she was too young to become a hen with a brood of children. She wanted to live for herself. She wanted to be alone with Max without a third extra. She didn't think about children at all. It was too early for her to think about them. She'd have time to think about them yet. And while she and Max were young and not jealous of each other, they should, as they say, live and live, enjoy freedom. And when the love surge would begin to subside, then it would be possible to have children. Now Max was using protection. In this, he could not rely on his wife, could not allow abortions, which Emma so easily refers to. It was not easy for him, and the fact that the abortion took place and the way his wife, his beloved Emma, treated it, all this he experienced acutely. At some point, it seemed to him that he fell out of love with his wife. But time passed, everything became in its place, and love all the same won the hidden resentments and perplexities. After graduating from the institute, Max was offered a good job, and not by any blat, but just one company chose two of the best students in their profile, and one of them was Max. He was lucky, Emma said. He didn't run anywhere, didn't humiliate himself with endless interviews, after which they said, "We'll call you," making it clear that they didn't need you, but came and asked you themselves. It seemed to Max that she said it with envy, not happy for him, but jealous, but he pushed these thoughts away. "Emma, it's great. The salary is good and professional growth is expected. Emma, with a salary like that, we can afford a mortgage. My darling, Max hugged his wife. We'll be able to afford a child." Emma was suspiciously silent. "Emma, can you hear me? We'll be able to have our baby." "Why go that far?" The wife replied calmly. "We don't have an apartment yet. But we can dream, Emma, can't we? It's been so long since we dreamed with you. Let's dream," Max exulted. Dreams. We dream a lot of things, but they don't always come true. So is it worth it to dream only to be disappointed? There goes Emma. There goes my girl. A man without a dream, that's just, I don't know, you can't live without dreams. "Emma, what's your dream?" "I told you my dream. What are your dreams? Do they match mine?" "The mortgage on the apartment, they do, but not the kids." "How not?" Max was sadly perplexed. "And why not?" "You found your professional niche, or rather you were found and shoved into it." "And me? Where am I?" Emma was angry for some reason, with diapers and in the kitchen. "Can't you think of me as anything other than a childbearing female?" "I don't think of you as a female," Max was confused. "I think of you as the mother of our children." "Emma, right now, I'm looking for a job that fulfills my ambitions." Yeah. Don't look at me like that. I'm calling it like it is. I'm going to get a job and grow in my profession. And the diapers can wait. I'm only 23 years old. I don't see any reason to rush into anything. As long as I don't get this baby thing. Is that clear? "How much clearer," said Max quietly. "Your beloved husband asked you for a child. The other would be happy. And I'm not another woman. Do you like others? The road is open. I don't keep and I won't keep." Max was not going to answer these speeches. He realized that now a word for a word and will get a scandal. He did not like scandals and did not want them, so, in order not to reach the point of no return and to keep their feelings with Emma, he tried to buy the emerging storm of emotions. Because Emma could not find a job worthy of herself, these scandals came more and more often, and Max left the scandals, sometimes in the literal sense of the word, left the house, giving time to calm down Emma. Sometimes he went to his friends, sometimes he just sat in a cafe across the street from their house, drank coffee, and looked at their windows where the light was still on and they were still waiting for him there. He would come back. He and Emma would have a stormy night of reconciliation, and for a while the arguments would subside. Emma had found a job she thought she deserved, and the quarrels in their family had all but disappeared because each spouse was passionate about his or her work. Especially Emma. She literally burned at work, and it should be said that the management of the company in which she worked appreciated her zeal because she was successfully promoted. There was an unspoken taboo between Emma and Max about having a child. Max was afraid to bring up the subject. He saw that Emma was completely devoted to her career. And the baby, she just doesn't have time for him. She barely has that time for him either. A crack had formed between them that promised to become a moat through which they couldn't reach each other. Emma often stayed late at work, and Max was in no hurry to get home. Who would he be in a hurry to get home? Despite her enthusiasm for work, Emma realized that if she kept going on like this, she would lose Max, and she didn't want that, so she decided to talk about the baby herself. She got home early from work, ordered food from the restaurant, set up a celebratory dinner, and waited for Max. She knew that Max's working hours were until 18 o'clock, so the table was set by the time her husband was supposed to show up. In general, she didn't know when Max came home because she had been coming home later than him for a long time. She came, and Max was already home at that time. She waited, but he didn't come. She called him, but the caller was out of range. Did he have someone else? Emma thought, did I miss him? I should have warned him in the morning that I had a big talk with him tonight. She was even afraid that she had delayed the birth of the baby and Max might leave her. And then, being so busy with her work, she hardly ever saw him, and while she was building her career, some quick girl might steal him away. Max came in at almost 10 o'clock at night. There were candles, glasses, champagne on the table, and Emma was asleep on the couch, having fallen asleep without waiting for him. Max touched his wife's shoulder. She jumped up, looked at her husband at the table with the cool dinner and said, I wanted to give us a holiday and talk about the baby. About the baby? Max was surprised. What are we going to have a baby? We haven't been close lately. We hardly see each other. Do you think a baby could save us? Her husband read her mind. That's exactly what she thought, a baby could save their marriage. Max, I love you and I don't want to lose you. You wanted a baby and we have everything we need to make it happen. I don't think we have what it takes, a family and love to raise a child. You are wrong, Max. Love sometimes gets tired and sick, but we can cure it and our baby will help us. Emma hugged her husband and cried. He had never seen her crying. He felt sorry for her. He hugged her, pressed her to him, stroked her head like a little girl and said, I'm always, Emma, I'm always for the baby, with both hands for our baby. Well, let's leave these tears. The holiday, said Max, pouring champagne into glasses, and you come back early from work, Emma. We need to work hard on our dream, to give birth to a baby. Emma smiled at her husband and only tasted the champagne. Now alcohol is forbidden to her and Max. They will conceive and raise a healthy child. That abortion is to blame for the fact that you can't get pregnant, Max reproached her. Or maybe you don't have the ability to conceive, Emma answered him. It happens to men too. Shall we blame each other, or shall we turn to specialists? Let's do it, Max agreed. Let's go together and find out. No, I'll go myself and you go yourself. I don't understand this escorting each other. I can't stand it when men sit under the gynecologist's office. Let's not panic. Let's just get a checkup. The doctor's report said that Emma and Max had no abnormalities, but the baby didn't want to conceive. God punished you, Max said, for that abortion. Max, you brought God into it. Emma smiled and thought to herself, maybe he really did, because I'll never have children. She had bought the certificate that she had no abnormalities on the female side. What she was hoping for, she didn't know. A miracle? What kind of miracle? That Max would accept her inability to have children and not leave her. What if she got pregnant? Miracles do happen. They started fighting again, and all because the miracle didn't happen. She again plunged headlong into work, and he waited or didn't wait. One day, after another quarrel, he left home and, as he had done before, went to the cafe across the street from their house. On weekday evenings, there were few people here. He ordered a coffee and croissant, sat down at a table and looked around. Right in front of him, at a neighboring table by the window, sat a young woman. The woman was crying. She was looking out the window and crying. She didn't even try to hide her tears. She didn't wipe them away with a handkerchief. They flowed down her cheeks and dripped into her coffee cup. She didn't touch the coffee. It was obvious that she didn't care about coffee. Max felt sorry for the woman. He couldn't look at crying women at all. Maybe she needs help. Something terrible had happened that made her cry in public. Maybe he could do something to help her. There are times when people feel bad and there's no one to turn to. He wanted to approach her, to talk to her, but he didn't dare, drinking coffee and furtively glancing at the woman. She noticed his scrutinizing gaze, took a handkerchief out of her bag, wiped her tears, and apparently was about to leave. Max made up his mind and approached her. "Excuse me," he said, "were you offended? Do you need help?" She looked up at him with her eyes full of tears, and he could read the incredible pain in them. "I can't be helped," she replied. "Thank you for your concern. I have to go." She stood up and walked towards the exit. She said it like that, and Max realized that at this moment, she needed support, just support for a person who could not cope with this pain or misfortune. People are so indifferent to each other lately, and when they see a person on the street who obviously needs help or support, they often pass by, thinking that it doesn't concern them, that it's none of their business. Max always resented such indifference. If he saw that a person needed a person, he could not pass by and did not pass, offered his help. Like now, he could not ignore a lonely crying woman. "I'll walk you out. It's late," Max said. She answered nothing, only nodded her head in agreement. They walked in silence for a while. Max wanted to talk to the girl, but was afraid that he might inadvertently hurt the man even more. The silence was becoming uncomfortable, but he could not find the words with which to begin their communication. She was the first to speak. "I buried my mother today," she said, and cried again. Here Max was completely confused. He knew that when a loved one dies, no one has ever come up with the words to comfort their loved ones. There are no words that can take away the pain of losing a loved one. All these condolence, be strong, hold on are duty words that carry nothing in themselves, empty words, and sometimes even irritating. He knew it from himself. When his father died, he had to hear this kind of consolations as some kind of an excuse, which do not bear any participation. "It's hard to part with the dearest people," Max said, "and I understand, because I've had to lose loved ones myself. My name is Leslie," the girl introduced herself. "I'm Max, and if you want to say something, tell me. It's easier to tell strangers what you can't tell loved ones. I don't really have anyone close to me. I have a brother who couldn't come to the funeral. I had to bury my mom myself, and it's very hard without the support of loved ones. My brother is a submariner, a military man. He just couldn't come. Do you understand?" "I understand. And your friends, girlfriends?" "My mom was sick for a long time, bedridden. I took care of her for 2.5 years. Who needs a friend like that? Nowadays, friends are partying, having fun, and I'm at my sick mom's bedside. I couldn't even work. We couldn't afford a nurse. We lived on my mom's disability pension. My brother helped, but I also worked part-time. In our house, I washed the entrances. I cleaned one entrance. I came home, saw that my mom was okay, and then I went to clean another one. I'm not complaining. I'm used to this kind of life, but now my mom is gone and I'm scared to go into the apartment because my mom is no longer there. Her things, her bed, her favorite books are there and she's gone. Do you understand?" Leslie cried. "I understand. When my father died, everything you're talking about, I experienced too. But my mom was with me, and I was at my mom's, and we supported each other as much as we could. My mom was memorialized at this cafe where you and I met. There were not many people, neighbors, her former colleagues, and then when everyone went away, I just could not find the strength to return home, where my mother is no longer there. I don't know how I'm going to go on. It's like the ground's gone from under my feet. It happens to everyone who has seen their loved one off. It takes time to get out of the pain. It takes time. It takes people you could talk to about all this, who can understand you. And that's how it is now." "Thank you." Leslie smiled through her tears. "Thank you for seeing me off. Here's my house. We're here. You helped me, Max, really. I told you all this and I feel a little better. And I'll leave you my cell phone," Max said. "If it's hard, you call me. I won't dare to disturb your grief. I know when there's pain in your soul, you don't always want to answer the phone, so you call. Don't be shy. People need each other, even strangers, and we've already met. And I'll call you, Max. I'll call you. Goodbye." Where have you been for so long? Emma asked unhappily. Anything wrong? You're out of the house like a cow with her tongue. Max undressed silently and went to bed. Emma hugged him, kissed his neck, but Max for the first time did not respond to his wife's caress, and the stormy night of reconciliation did not happen. She couldn't believe her eyes. There were 2 clear lines on the test strip. Was it really a miracle and she was pregnant? Emma's soul was rejoicing, and at the same time she was overcome by doubts, because the doctor said that she would not have children. Until she was sure she was pregnant, she wouldn't tell Max. 3 to 4 weeks pregnant, the doctor said, "Will you keep the pregnancy?" she asked sternly. "I will," Emma smiled. "Of course I will." She went home on the sails of her happy news, her miracle. This news she did not want to tell Max on the phone. She would tell him when he came home from work, and then she already imagined how happy he would be, how happy they would be. It had been a long time since they'd had such vivid emotions in their family, and here it was, happiness. She couldn't wait to share this news, but Max didn't hurry home, out of habit. She dialed his phone number to see when he'd come over, but Max didn't answer. Whenever she called him, Max rejected the call. He was sitting in a coffee shop across the street from his house with Leslie. Leslie had called him and asked to meet him. It had been over a week since the day he had walked her to her house, and he thought she wouldn't call. But today she had called, and for some reason he was glad. It meant she still needed him, or rather, needed his support, his participation. Max saw that the light was on in the windows of his and Emma's apartment, and Emma was calling him persistently, which was very rare, so she needed him too, and he would try to get home as soon as possible. He looked at Leslie and realized he liked her. Then, when she was completely given to grief, she had a swollen face and red eyes from tears, disheveled hair, gray, almost old lady suit, and from this Leslie did not seem so young as now. Especially the eyes struck him, so bottomless that he wanted to drown in them. That day he didn't look at her face or her eyes. That day Leslie was in grief and he just felt sorry for her. They were drinking coffee. Max was waiting in silence. "Max, I have a favor to ask of you. I'm terribly sorry to ask you, but I have no one else to turn to. I was wondering if you could help me." "I don't know until I know what you're asking. I can't say whether I can help you or not." She was embarrassed, blushing, and it made her look even more attractive. "I've been trying to find a job for a week, but no luck." "No, there are jobs, low-paying and simple. I looked for a job in my profession, but alas, yeah, jobs are hard to come by." "And what is your profession, Leslie?" "I'm a PR manager and I've worked for a small company for a while. But you see, a 2.5-year gap is a bit of a stretch, and it's hard to convince employers of my competence. I can't tell you right away if I can help you, but I'll try. I have a lot of acquaintances from work, a lot of friends. I will try to help you. If I have something for you, I'll call you." "I don't have to call you myself." He wanted to say no, but looking into her eyes, full of hope that she could still call him, he couldn't answer her like that. "Call, of course you will. Now, Leslie, if you'll excuse me, I have to run. You won't be offended if I leave you so soon, will you? My wife's waiting for me." He specifically said his wife so Leslie would realize he was just trying to help her. Or maybe he said about his wife to remind himself that he was married, not to give himself a chance to drown in Leslie's eyes and to let Leslie know that he was not free. "No, no," Leslie hastened to reply. "I won't take offense. I'm grateful that you care about my requests. You could have just not answered my call or not come and I would have understood. Everyone has his own life, but you did show up. Thank you." Max ran home and thought to himself how sad she was when she said, "Thank you." It seemed to him that she was sad to hear about his wife, or was it just his imagination? "Where have you been, Max?" Emma jumped into her husband's arms. "I have such news. I'm so excited to share it with you, and you're still not here." "Congratulations," said Max. "Another promotion. And who will you be this time? Who was moved to promote you?" "You fool." Emma cheered. "I'm pregnant, Max. Your wife is pregnant." "Emma, is this a joke?" Max got excited. "It's not a joke. You're my favorite fool." Max grabbed his wife in his arms and spun her around the room. "Let go, let go. He's crazy," laughed Emma. "And I won't let go," laughed Max. "I'll carry you together with our baby and spin you around." You see, everything's fine with you and me, and we'll have a baby. 2 children, laughed Max, and I don't agree to anything less. You're so fast, you'll give birth to the second one yourself, joked Emma. If I could, I'd have 3 already. Let's celebrate this joy. Max poured himself a cognac. And juice for me, juice for me. Emma almost jumped with joy. Of course you juice, my little Emma. What else do pregnant women like? I'll do anything for my babies. I don't know yet, replied Emma. So far it's business as usual. I don't even feel pregnant. It had been a long time since they had been so happy. They even fell asleep in each other's arms as they had in the first months of their acquaintance. As Max fell asleep, the lines of an old song, his father's and grandfather's favorite song, were playing in his head. As nightingales sing, half darkness, a kiss at dawn. And the pinnacle of love is the miracle of great children. Emma had not seen Max so happy for a long time, and she was happy with him. And soon they would be 3, and whether they would be so happy then, because children were not only joy, they were labor, hard work. Emma understood that, but did Max? Her friend's happiness turned into divorce. Her friend's husband was jealous of his wife's child, saying that she spent too much time on the baby, and he was deprived of her attention. The friend's husband had strayed, found attention on the side, so they divorced. Max does not seem to suffer from selfishness, but there is no telling what will happen. All these thoughts and worries Emma was in vain, because in the 3rd month of pregnancy there was a miscarriage. The miracle did not last long, and the doctor said, it was actually a miracle that the pregnancy happened. You might still get pregnant by some miracle, but the medical evidence says otherwise. The doctors could not prevent the miscarriage, and when Max came to visit his wife in the hospital, he saw how she was going through it all. There is no indifference in her as after the abortion. He didn't expect such a change from his wife. Her ease with everything was replaced by depression. The joy their baby gave them died with him. Emma withdrew into her grief, and Max tried to get her back on track. He surrounded her with attention and care and kept saying, Emma, we will try and everything will work out. We will have a baby. You just believe in it. We mustn't lose heart or we'll be ruined. Ruin what? Max didn't say, but Emma realized that everything could be ruined, their hopes, their love, and eventually their family, and she didn't want that. Max was hers alone, and she wouldn't give him to anyone else. She knew that men don't have the patience to comfort a woman, to pity her. Men get tired of it quickly, so she pulled herself together and cheered herself up as best she could. Max noticed that Emma's joyful outburst of emotion was replaced by depression, a short depression, but still depression. Emma lay back against the wall and remained silent. Then Max, like a little girl, would take her in his arms, hug her, and she would hug him and cry, bitterly and even tearfully. Doctors took Emma out of the depressive state, but something in her had changed, forever changed, broken like that broken branch in the tree, alive, blooming, giving fruit, but stands out in the general crown of the tree. There is no order in the tree, and where there is no order, there is no beauty. Emma had changed and was a completely different woman, not the one Max knew and loved. Carelessness in dress, indifference to her appearance, which was not peculiar to her. She had lost a great deal of weight, and if thinness made someone look young, Emma, on the contrary, looked older. The plumpness of her almost childish cheeks was gone, and mournful wrinkles appeared in the corners of her eyes and between her eyebrows. Emma was indifferent to food, and she didn't care what Max would eat when he came home from work. She stopped cooking, and often when Max came home and found that there was no food in the house, he went to the store, then cooked and literally forced his wife to eat dinner with him. Only work kept Emma afloat. She plunged into it with her head. For all these events, Max, not that he forgot about Leslie's request, he was simply not up to looking for a job for her, and she sometimes called him, but received a negative answer. Nothing suitable yet, Max replied, but I. Thanks, Max, after all, you don't have to, but I'm still grateful to you, if only for the fact that I can talk to you. I'm looking for a job too. I'm keeping my hands up, but I'm still cleaning the entrances of the house and my brother's still helping me. Leslie, hi. Listen to me, Leslie, here's a proposal. Our company needs a PR manager, but on the condition that you take a refresher course without taking time off work. How's that sound? Can you handle it? Because I've already vouched for you and I'm kind of responsible for you. although I don't know your professional capabilities. Max, my God, I'm so glad. Oh, hello. I forgot to say hello. Of course I'll manage. Don't doubt, you won't have to blush for me. That's what I'm telling you. Max could hear Leslie's excitement even over the phone. He was glad that he could help her. It was Leslie's promise to him that made him tense. Of course, his promise wasn't binding, but it stressed him out. He wanted to help Leslie and he did. At least he could help her, but his main person, Emma, couldn't do it. Leslie was happy to have a job that she enjoyed and more. She was also happy that she could not only hear Max, but also see him, because they worked in the same campaign. And she was in love with Max, Leslie boldly admitted to herself. And how could she not fall in love with him? Attentive, kind, intelligent, and in addition handsome. It's a pity that he is married. A woman is lucky to have a husband like Max. She's never been lucky with men. She was pretty, not stupid, but she was unlucky. Archie had been in a serious relationship for over a year, but it lasted until her mom got sick. Archie said he didn't want anyone else's problems. Well, that's right. So he thought she was a stranger, so he said it. For a long time, Leslie didn't have to cry for unfulfilled hopes. She had no time to worry. She had a sick mother on her hands, cleaning in the entrances. She was spinning like a squirrel in a wheel. She didn't have time for that. But now she has a feeling beyond her control, which she cannot and does not want to fight. She let him into her heart and is not going to part with it. She loves Max, really loves him, without any conventions, knowing that he is married and most likely loves his wife. Max had made it clear to her at the cafe that he was not free, and not that he was not free, but deeply married. He was in such a hurry to see his wife that he didn't even walk Leslie home, and it was already dark. Emma and Max's closeness had faded to almost nothing. The incredible lightness, the attractiveness, the charm that had so beckoned Max to his wife, had all at once gone from Emma. There was no Emma that Max loved. He also realized that with the loss of their baby, not only joy was gone, but love was gone. Did Emma realize that? He didn't know, as they barely spoke to each other, growing farther and farther apart. Leslie didn't make Max blush for himself. With all her knowledge and effort, she was proving to Max that he had vouched for her for a reason. Her work distracted her from thoughts of her mother's death, and she was also distracted by her love for Max, which she kept carefully hidden, her eyes giving her away. When she saw Max, it was like a fire lit up in them, and against Leslie's wishes, a blush flared up. Max saw and felt that at least Leslie liked him and liked her. Liked her, but not more than that. He didn't have that exhilarating feeling he once had for Emma when he'd fall asleep and wake up thinking about sweet Emma. Where does it all go? Where does love go? He didn't know. And if he had, he would have run there and brought back love for this poor Emma, whom he now only pitied. The corporate Women's Day party was gaining momentum. Everyone was well tipsy, having fun and fooling around. Max noticed that Leslie was a big hit with the men at the party. Not a single dance Leslie did not miss, and from her success was so good that Max sat and admired. Max was happy while the magic of their intimacy lasted. It had been a long time since he had experienced such a thing. Leslie, embracing him, was in the euphoria that Max had just given her, and Max was kind of down. He thought of Emma, and he wanted to go home. She didn't know about his corporate party and hadn't called him once all night, and that bothered him. I should go home, Max said. He hailed a cab and started to get dressed. Don't you want to stay? Leslie wondered, did you feel bad with me? You know we had a good time, but I have to go home. I understand. I'm sorry. I forgot for a while that you were married. When he got home, Emma was awake. The nightlight was on. She was lying on the bed. She lifted her head and asked as if she didn't care what Max said, "Did you find someone else?" Max remained silent. He didn't want to lie, and he didn't want to tell the truth. "Are you going to leave me?" she asked, and immediately replied, "Of course you're going to leave me. Why would you want me like this? Infertile. Don't say that. I won't leave you. Let's go to bed. I'm tired. We had a company party. Tomorrow is a holiday, your women's holiday, if you remember." "I remember," Emma replied and turned to the wall. Now, whenever Emma didn't want to talk, she turned her back to the wall, letting Max know that the conversation was over. Since that corporate evening, Max and Leslie had been having a torrid affair. Max was pleased with the fact that Leslie stays within the bounds of what is acceptable. She doesn't talk about them as a couple. They are just lovers. He gets what he misses with Emma, and Leslie never asked unnecessary questions. Of course, Leslie wanted Max to be only with her, but she kept quiet about it, afraid of scaring him off and losing him completely. When he left her at home, she reassured herself, "Let everything be as it is, only if you was with me. And married? Well, then it's my fate to love a married man." She did not ask unnecessary questions because she knew that if a man needs, he himself will tell about everything. And if he does not tell, then there is no reason for her to stick her nose in it. Perfect lover, she laughed at herself. Leslie, although the status of only a lover, few people are happy, but she was happy, better so than nothing. But she drew conclusions, some not so strong marital bonds of Max. If he visits her almost every night, sometimes you just have to wait, and she waited. But at the same time, she knew that you can wait, a very long time to wait, and in the end to be alone. Right now, she was with Max and he was with her. And then what would happen? About then, she doesn't want to think about. At first, Leslie used protection not to get pregnant, but after 6 months of meetings with Max, he decided to have a child with him, and from whom to give birth, as not from the beloved. She knew that Max had no children with his wife, and that's probably why there was something wrong in Max's family. What if her pregnancy would give Max the impetus to divorce his wife? Of course, it's a risk, but she's willing to take the risk. She wants a baby with Max. "I'm pregnant, Max," Leslie said, and was startled by her words. "Why?" Max asked. "Leslie, why complicate things? You know I'm married. I'm not leaving my wife." Leslie was angry at his words. Leslie, who had been patient up to now, replied sharply, "Married, so married, I'm not going to take you away from your wife. I just put you in front of the fact. How long? Maybe. No, I'm having our baby and that's it. Whether you accept it or not is up to you." He wanted Leslie to kill the baby like Emma did. He wanted to, and he hadn't realized why in the first few minutes he'd heard the news. He'd been confused. Maybe because he thought it was a betrayal of Emma. Emma can't have a child with him, but another woman can. He once judged and misunderstood Emma for having the courage to have an abortion, but now he was ready to push Leslie to do it himself. So he wanted the child. Here was a woman who could give him a baby, and now he didn't know if he wanted this baby. If Emma had told him the news, that's different, but Leslie wasn't his wife, and he didn't know if he wanted her as his wife. Leslie and Emma are different planets, and Max has different attitudes toward them. Emma, though unloved, is a dear person to him. They've been through a lot together. He didn't know how to explain his current relationship with his wife. They just live under the same roof. Probably the past kept him with Emma, and the past was vivid. He didn't have that with Leslie, but he had a pregnancy, which was desirable for Leslie. And for him, he needs to think about all of this, weigh it all and understand it all and isolate what's important. What does he need for himself? "Leslie, I don't know what to tell you. It's kind of sudden. You made up your mind, and you shouldn't have asked me." And he did. He'll never forget that night. He came home from Leslie's late. Emma was lying on the bed facing the wall, but she wasn't asleep. He knew that. He couldn't see it, but he knew it. "Emma," he said to his wife, "I've made up my mind. We're separating." "Why are you telling me this now?" Emma cried. "You could have told me in the morning." "What difference does it make?" Max answered sharply, "Morning or evening, it won't make any difference. Are you going to leave now or wait until morning? Tomorrow you'll go to work, and I'll pack my things and never come to see you again. I don't want to pack them in front of you. I don't want to hurt you more." She laughed so loudly, hysterically. He was afraid she'd lost her mind. She'd never laughed like that. He grabbed her and held her to him. "Calm down, Emma. Calm down, sweetheart," Max wailed. "Get out," she shouted and pushed him away. "Damn you and your baby," Emma shouted. She looked at him so hard that he involuntarily flinched. "Dead he will be born your child. Do you understand? Curse your mistress's womb and let her give birth only to dead children," screamed Emma as if mad. "What are you doing, Emma?" Max was scared. "What do you think you're talking about? What do kids have to do with this?" "That's the way I want it," laughed Emma. "Got it? Remember, You won't see your children alive. You'll only see them dead." He saw Emma's hysterics escalating, so he slapped her across the face and she stopped talking. He went to Leslie's, and in the morning, when Emma was at work, he snuck into their apartment like a thief, or at least that's how he felt, and packed up their things. Leslie didn't ask, and Max didn't tell her how badly, very badly, cursing, he'd broken up with Emma. He had such a residue on his soul, he kept hearing Emma's words. "You'll never see your children alive. You'll only see them dead." It was said with such force, with such certainty that it would be just that and no other way. He began to believe Emma's words and worry about Leslie and the baby. After each doctor's visit, when Leslie said everything was fine, he would calm down for a while, but then the nervousness would return. Leslie enjoyed Max's concern. She thought it was love for her and their baby and was happy, but sometimes Max was thoughtful, as if he was withdrawing into himself. At those moments, it seemed to her that he was not with her, but with Emma, and she was terribly jealous, but she delicately kept silent because she knew that Max had no meetings with his wife. He wasn't divorced yet, and Leslie wasn't rushing him. Emma didn't remind him of herself in any way. It was as if she didn't exist, but Leslie knew she was there, and for Max, she still was. He parted with her physically, but for his soul, she could not vouch, as they say. A stranger's soul is a dark place, and Max had not yet become her family, and it did not depend on her. Everything seemed to be good, but she felt and saw a wall between them, which does not let them get closer and connect into one whole. Maybe the arrival of a child would break down that blank, cold wall. 3 weeks Max lived with Leslie, and he really wanted to call his wife, to find out how she was, what was wrong with her. After all, it was necessary to formalize the divorce. He did not dare to call, afraid of a new outburst of hatred from Emma, and he was afraid not for himself, but for her. And then when he heard her voice, he realized that he would want to see her. He's here with Leslie, and she's alone in their apartment. And the apartment has to be dealt with after all. He's the one paying the mortgage. Leslie had hinted to him about divorcing Emma, but he kept quiet, pretended he didn't understand her. With Leslie, he learned to pretend. When he didn't want to hear from her, he pretended not to understand her claims and innuendos. He'd become different, and he didn't like himself that way. It was as if he wasn't living, but playing in a cheap play called love and family. After living with Leslie for 3 weeks, he finally realized that he does not love her and will never love her. Why is he with her? Because of the baby Leslie was going to have. He didn't want to be dishonest about that either. He didn't want that baby. Men only want children with the women they love. He didn't know what he wanted. Right now, he was dying to see Emma. Why? He doesn't know. Could it be because for 5 years in a row, every night after work, he'd come home, and even when he started an affair with Leslie, he'd never stayed at her place one night, always coming home. Must be force of habit, Max thought. It takes time to get used to this home, to seeing Emma every day. He didn't think there would be any difficulties with that. And they showed up. Leslie, as a wife, though she wasn't a wife yet, had shown herself to be at her best. She cooked deliciously. The apartment was clean and tidy. Max was pampered. But it wasn't the same. He missed Emma. Now, when she was not in his life, he longed for her and could not explain his feelings. And Emma waited for Max every night. She didn't call them. She was proud. She wouldn't demean herself by asking for a date. In her heart, Emma didn't put him down. She knew how he wanted a child, realized that he wouldn't walk away from a child. And then he said he fell out of love with her. He probably did, or he would have come back. Such love as she and Max had once in a lifetime, and Emma didn't believe that Max loved his new girlfriend. There would be no repeat. One love can't replace another so quickly. It doesn't happen that way. Waiting for Max every night ended with Emma in tears and angry with herself. She blamed herself for everything, for not being able to have a child, for not giving Max the attention he deserved. It was her own fault that he hadn't gone off to the side, her own fault that she had sunk, lost weight, and looked more like a mummy than a young, blooming woman. Is there anything she can do about it? Except for her appearance, she will not fix anything, so she decided to take care of herself. Went to the doctor, neurologist, to extinguish stress, to fight depression, engaged in their diet, closet and often began to visit beauty salons. All these efforts only for herself, because she knew that no man did not return transformed appearance of a woman. Sometimes she did not even want to live, but at the same time she realized you cannot bury yourself alive. And then at work her obliquely looked at her, asking questions about her health. Her appearance and uncoordinated behavior suggested that she was in trouble, and assuming that it was a health problem, hinted that it would be a good idea for her to take care of her own problems. Emma realized that if this continued, she would lose her job. It was the only thing she had left, and she couldn't let that happen. After calming down a bit, Emma decided to call home and tell her parents about her family's circumstances. She didn't tell her parents that Max had a mistress. She didn't want to worry them. She hoped that everything would work out between her and Max, but there was nothing she could do. She had to tell them everything, especially now she needed support. And who can support her but mom and dad? She didn't believe in psychotherapists, and she wasn't going to turn her soul out in front of a stranger. Her parents had always been on her side and her salvation. Even though her father was a dictator, sometimes rude and intolerant, he loved his daughters and never let anyone hurt them. But now Emma was hurt, very hurt. So hurt that at times she didn't want to live. Emma, my daughter. Emma's mother was happy to receive the call. How much I miss you. When are you coming? When are you and Max on vacation? Emma couldn't stand her mother's question. The tears were rolling by themselves. She tried to swallow them so her mom wouldn't hear her crying. Wait, my daughter, why are you crying? Emma, what's wrong? Her mother's anxiety took over and she burst into open tears. Max, Emma could only manage to say. Daughter, give me the phone. Emma heard her father's voice. Daughter, tell me, what did your Max do with that miscarriage? Don't be silent. I can feel it's him. Tell me, don't be afraid. He left me, Daddy. He has another woman and they're going to have a child. Emma blurted out, gasping with resentment. Left? Are you two divorced? Arthur was indignant. We are not divorced yet, but the divorce is not far off, Emma said through her tears. You bastard, you haven't divorced your wife. You've got another family. I'll break that walker stills. I'll be there, Emma. Don't cry, my daughter. Don't think anything bad. I won't think anything bad, Dad. I'm taking sedative pills. I'll make him take pills. I'll make him take pills himself. Dad, it's not his fault. It's my fault too. Did you find another man? No, I didn't. I had an abortion. Arthur's rant was interrupted. He didn't say a word. Dad, Emma was frightened. Dad, can you hear me? I can hear you, the father replied tiredly. Why, Emma? Why did you do this? I knew you'd be against it, and I want to have a baby with the man I love. It's important to me. Really, Max, you're entitled to do what you think is right. I realize you're married and all, but the baby is already inside me, and I'm going to carry it and give birth to it no matter what you say. I need time. It's all too sudden. Max kept repeating. A man and a woman making love, sleeping together, and a baby is a surprise. Leslie grinned. She wanted to prick Max to hurt him, not only her, but I think it's all logical and leads to the conception of a child. He'd never seen Leslie so arrogant, so cocky. He'd seen the other side of her, determined when she could stand up for herself and her child. Her own, but it's his child too. And no matter how much he separates himself from Leslie and the baby, he has to recognize that the baby, once born, will bind him and Leslie together. He can't hide from them. What's he gonna do, hide? No, he needs time to realize what Leslie's offering him. Is she offering him? Of course she is, but not in a demeaning, dignified way. Leslie, let's take a break for a while. We need to examine ourselves. Leslie realized he was getting cold feet, and as she clung to him now, she'd probably lose him forever. Okay, she said as nonchalantly as possible, check yourself. I checked myself a long time ago. That's why I decided to have a baby. And you check, but look, there's a limit to everything, and there's patience. What are you talking about? Max pretended not to understand. Everything, including you and me. Now, Max, go home. I need to rest. She never chased him away. Today she surprised him. Whether the pregnancy, the hormonal surge had such an effect on Leslie, or whether it was some female wisdom, tricks, or maybe even nets in which he was caught, and whether he should get out of Leslie's nets or not, he had not decided yet. He had known her to be docile, not crossing him in anything, And here's such a metamorphosis, as if it was not Leslie at all, but some other woman. He left and Leslie let out tears. Archie told her directly that he didn't care about other people's problems. Max didn't say that, but she felt like a stranger to him. From that day, or rather evening, Max didn't come to Leslie's house. Twice during the week, he met her at work and asked how she was doing and how she was feeling. "How am I doing?" Leslie grinned. "And my baby and I are feeling great." She specifically mentioned the baby and emphasized "my baby," even if he didn't expect her to have an abortion. "Max, why are you coming home early?" Emma asked. "Did your mistress reject you?" "You only dream about mistresses," Max shouted. "You should have thought of something new." "What's there to think of? The facts are clear. You've been coming home for 2 weeks like clockwork." "You're talking too much," Max was angry. "You've been silent, 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 and now it's like you've broken through." They didn't recognize each other. They had never talked to each other like that. Each wanted to say something so that his words would hurt more. No one spared anyone. Max knew that she wouldn't hurt Emma any more than he could hurt him, and reveling in his dislike for her, he announced, "She's pregnant." "Who?" Emma didn't understand. "A mistress, as you put it." Emma fell silent because Max's words had struck her dead. "Why didn't you say anything?" "Nothing to say." "Nothing," Emma admitted. "We had nothing to say to each other for a long time. Would you go to her?" "I don't know yet." "Well, you wanted a baby so badly, go," she said sadly. "I wanted to have a baby with you, the baby you killed me and me." Max screamed. "I don't know why, but I can and I don't want to leave you." "Emma, we don't love each other anymore. We don't sleep together. We hardly talk to each other." "Why are we together?" "Why?" "I don't know," Emma said quietly. "I don't know anything. All I know is that you've fallen out of love with me, Max, and I still love you, and maybe even more than before." He grabbed her in his arms, held her to him as he had once held her, tightly, and whispered in her ear, "Let me go, Emma, let me go." "Who's holding you?" she shouted and pushed him away. "Go." "That's the thing, I can't go, not yet. I'm afraid to leave you alone." "I've been alone for a long time, so make up your mind." Leslie, as a wife, though she wasn't a wife yet, had shown herself to be at her best. She cooked deliciously. The apartment was clean and tidy. Max was pampered, but it wasn't the same. He missed Emma. Now when she was not in his life, he longed for her and could not explain his feelings. And Emma waited for Max every night. She didn't call him. She was proud. She wouldn't demean herself by asking for a date. In her heart, Emma didn't put him down. She knew how he wanted a child, realized that he wouldn't walk away from a child, and then he said he fell out of love with her. He probably did, or he would have come back. Such love as she and Max had once in a lifetime, and Emma didn't believe that Max loved his new girlfriend. There would be no repeat. One love can't replace another so quickly. It doesn't happen that way. Waiting for Max every night ended with Emma in tears and angry with herself. She blamed herself for everything, for not being able to have a child, for not giving Max the attention he deserved. It was her own fault that he hadn't gone off to the side, her own fault that she had sunk, lost weight, and looked more like a mummy than a young, blooming woman. Is there anything she can do about it? Except for her appearance, she will not fix anything. So she decided to take care of herself. Went to the doctor, neurologist, to extinguish stress, to fight depression, engaged in their diet, closet, and often began to visit beauty salons. All these efforts only for herself, because she knew that no man did not return transformed appearance of a woman. Sometimes she did not even want to live, but at the same time she realized you cannot bury yourself alive. And then at work at her obliquely looked at her, asking questions about her health. Her appearance and uncoordinated behavior suggested that she was in trouble, and assuming that it was a health problem, hinted that it would be a good idea for her to take care of her own problems. Emma realized that if this continued, she would lose her job. It was the only thing she had left, and she couldn't let that happen. After calming down a bit, Emma decided to call home and tell her parents about her family's circumstances. She didn't tell her parents that Max had a mistress. She didn't want to worry them. She'd hoped that everything would work out between her and Max, but there was nothing she could do. She had to tell them everything, especially now she needed support. And who can support her but mom and dad? She didn't believe in psychotherapists, and she wasn't going to turn her soul out in front of a stranger. Her parents had always been on her side in her salvation. Even though her father was a dictator, sometimes rude and intolerant, he loved his daughters and never let anyone hurt them. But now Emma was hurt, very hurt. So hurt that at times she didn't want to live. "Emma, my daughter." Emma's mother was happy to receive the call. "How much I miss you. When you coming? When are you and Max on vacation?" Emma couldn't stand her mother's question. The tears were rolling by themselves. She tried to swallow them so her mom wouldn't hear her crying. "Wait, my daughter, why are you crying?" "Emma, what's wrong?" Her mother's anxiety took over and she burst into open tears. "Max," Emma could only manage to say. "Daughter, give me the phone." Emma heard her father's voice. "Daughter, tell me, what did your Max do with that miscarriage? Don't be silent, I can feel it's him. Tell me, don't be afraid." "He left me, Daddy. He has another woman and they're going to have a child," Emma blurted out, gasping with resentment. "Left? Are you two divorced?" Arthur was indignant. "We are not divorced yet, but the divorce is not far off," Emma said through her tears. "You bastard, you haven't divorced your wife, you've got another family. I'll break that walker's stilts. I'll be there, Emma. Don't cry, my daughter. Don't think anything bad." "I won't think anything bad, Dad. I'm taking sedative pills." "I'll make him take pills. I'll make him take pills himself." "Dad, it's not his fault. It's my fault too." "Did you find another man?" "No, I didn't. I had an abortion." Arthur's rant was interrupted. He didn't say a word. "Dad," Emma was frightened. "Dad, can you hear me?" "I can hear you," the father replied tiredly. "Why, Emma? Why did you do this? Who's gonna untangle it? Unravel it yourself. You don't have any babysitters. Are you a man or are you just a rag to wipe up shit and throw away? And divorce Emma, the sooner the better. Don't get her hopes up. She needs to settle down about you. I made you get married. I'm here to divorce you. I want the divorce to be filed in court tomorrow. Understand?" Under the onslaught of this father-in-law, Max suddenly realized that he was delaying the divorce because he did not want it. And here like this, almost a knife to the throat, divorce and everything. "I can't hear the answer," the father-in-law said threateningly. "I don't know," Max dared to answer. "What do you mean, I don't know?" resented Arthur. "I don't want a divorce, not yet." Silence. "What are you, a guy who's lost his mind?" "Well, fuck you. Emma and I will file for divorce ourselves. Now get out." Max got up from the bench and walked slowly, feeling how his father-in-law's gaze burned his back. But at the same time, after the conversation with Artur Veniaminovich, he felt better at heart. Under his father-in-law's pressure, he voiced what he was afraid to admit to himself. He did not love Leslie. He did not want a divorce from Emma. Emma came to the divorce with her father. He would have approached his wife if it hadn't been for Arthur, who gave him a glare that discouraged him from talking to Emma. The look in his father-in-law's eyes warned him, "Come near me, you'll regret it." The two of them had to walk to the courtroom, Arthur staying in the hallway waiting for his daughter. Emma tried not to look in Max's direction. Even to feel his presence near her was not easy, and to see him was even more torture. She misses Max, misses him very much, and when they wanted to give them time to think about their divorce and maybe give it up, Emma screamed, "Divorce us now, don't. It's been decided for a long time. He has another family, please. I want clarity. Divorce us." They were divorced. Arthur hugged his daughter and took her out of the courtroom in tears. Max was pained to see his ex-wife suffering. He realized that he was to blame for her suffering, and he also blamed Leslie, who of course was happy to wait for him. Divorce from Emma implied marriage to Leslie. That's what Leslie thought, but not Max. He knew for a fact he would leave Leslie. As soon as Emma vacated the apartment, he'd move to the place he'd always wanted, his home. According to the contract, which was drawn up at the notary, Max must pay his ex-wife half of the paid mortgage and become a full-fledged owner of once their apartment with Emma. Hoping that Arthur, having handled their divorce, had gone home, Max called Emma. He knew she would soon be leaving for good and wanted to say goodbye to her. Emma was leaving for her hometown, and she and Max might never meet again. "Yes," she replied calmly. "What did you want?" "You know I'll be leaving in a week. I'll turn in my work, and that's it. Goodbye, Max." hello to your new life. I'd like to see you say goodbye. No, Emma said. Emma, please, you've left such a mark on my life that I can't just leave you. You're the best thing that ever happened to me. What are your years, Max? Emma laughed. Even over the phone, Max could hear it was a laugh of despair. Maybe your best is ahead of you. Maybe so, but I miss you, I miss you. Well, what did you want? You did everything you could to break us up. I don't even want to stay in this city. Everything here reminds me of you and me. It still hurts, and I'm going to part forever, not only with you, but with this unbearable pain. Please, please, just one last time, Emma. No, and I'll still come and sit at your door until you open it. The hell with you, come. Come tonight, then I won't have time. You got it? Yes, Max answered hastily. I'll be at your place after work. From the threshold, Max rushed to Emma with a hug. She resisted weakly, he felt it. And so, as before, their bodies merged in a single impulse. They were so attracted to each other that neither of them wanted to resist it. Everything happened as it had when they had just fallen in love with each other, when they had been happy and thought that it was happiness forever. Now Emma thought differently. There can always be earth, sun, sky, and love is a moment that has passed and only pain remains. I don't want you to leave, Max said, when they were exhausted but happy, and Max stroked his ex-wife's hair and face. You're I want, and I don't want will stay here. This is the last time we see each other. Emma replied, Am I a lover today? Emma grinned sadly. Is your pregnant wife waiting for you like I was? She's not my wife yet, and she's not likely to be. What about the child? The child will be, but not the wife. Cruel, said Emma, and you're a cruel type, Max. I never noticed it in you before. I must have loved you to death, so I didn't notice your selfishness. They say love is blind for a reason. Don't you love me now? You're overconfident, Max. What we had was sex, nothing more. Don't lie to yourself and to me too. Lying doesn't suit you, but it suits you. I'm sorry. Even though you're mad at me, I'll stay with you until morning. Goodbye, Max said. And like lovers who say goodbye forever, they gave themselves over to the feeling they once had. It was as if they remembered it. He didn't come home tonight, and Leslie was sure Max was at his exit. Leslie was hurt. How could he do this to her who was pregnant with his child? She couldn't understand it. And on this sleepless night, she realized that Max was never hers and never would be. If it wasn't his ex-wife, he'd find someone else. He'd leave her and she wouldn't keep him. Why hold him back? To stay awake like tonight and suffer the agony of waiting, so that it wouldn't hurt so much when he told her, I'm leaving you. She decided to pack Max's things herself and show him the way out. Everyone said goodbye to each other, Max to Emma, Emma to Max, and Leslie said goodbye to her lover. She can no longer pretend that they have a real family, that they are doing well. Again, her worries are reflected on the child, who is not to blame that she chose him as a father. Such a fickle man who says one thing and does another. It will always be like this, and Leslie decided that it is better to be alone to bring up the baby. She sees no sense in such a husband, not in such a father. When the next day after work, Max returned to Leslie's house, his packed things were in the hallway. Leslie came out of the room and said, I'm not your Emma, and I'm not going to put up with your male bondage. You are free to go. There will be no tears. Leave. He was dumbfounded at Leslie's fortitude. Yes, she wasn't Emma who cried and put up with him going to Leslie. He even respected the mother of his future child. He was going to leave Leslie, but not now, not in a week, when his apartment was vacant. And then he'd have to go to Emma's to bow to her. Where else would he go on a night out? That's how Emma greeted Max. In the morning, they said goodbye forever. I got nowhere to go. Leslie kicked me out. You've been in my shoes one night and you kicked me out. Emma grinned wickedly. What about the baby you need, the one you've been waiting for? What's he gonna do without a daddy like that? Stop mocking me. You don't have to talk to me at all. It's my apartment after all. And I have nowhere to go, so you'll have to put up with me this week. You won't be sleeping with me, and we share a bed. What are you gonna do? We'll sleep under different blankets. You know, the last thing I want to do is see you this last week and sleep in the same bed with you under different blankets. Why don't you stay at a friend's house or rent an apartment for a week? Well, all my friends are married and I come and say, can I stay with you for a week? but I have no money to rent an apartment or a hotel room for a week. I gave you all my savings to pay my rent, so you'll have to put up with me. There's no other way." They went to bed under different blankets and woke up in the morning in an embrace. "Don't go away, Emma. Look how things have gotten better with you and me," Max asked, when by the end of the week all Emma's things were packed. "No, Max, it's all burned out and painful. There's nothing more for me to do here. You're a fickle person, as I understand it. One day you're like this, the next day you'll run back to Leslie, and if you don't run to Leslie, you'll run to someone else." Emma went to live with her parents permanently, and Max was left alone. It had been a long time since he'd been alone, and it was for the best. He could finally get his thoughts in order and start a new life without Emma and Leslie. Without Leslie? Not without Leslie. There was a baby on the way, and it was already known, a son. Not to say that Max was over the moon about having a child, but he was flattered that he would have a son and maybe it would be a new stage of his life. At last, he would be able to live on his own, not fulfill someone else's desires. Arthur had married him and Emma. He had divorced them and taken Emma home. Leslie had decided to have a child on her own. No one had asked him anything, and he had not resisted, so his life had gone with the flow. It went as someone else wanted it to go, not as he wanted it to go. At first, when Emma left, he missed her, called her on the phone, but the subscriber was unavailable. Apparently, Emma had changed her SIM card so that Max couldn't remind her of herself in any way. What about now? And now it flows as it will. One cohabitant is replaced by another, no obligations to anyone. Enough of this obligations to the born son, to whom he paid alimony and saw him on weekends. He didn't have such feelings as he had with Emma with any of his other women. That's why so often one woman changed for another. Such a life suited him. He did not have a family and did not want it. He liked to live for himself and for Harvey, of course, for his son, who had a stepfather, with whom Harvey grew up and considered his stepfather a father more than him. Max Harvey called Max Dad, and his stepdad called him Dad. Max was offended, but he made no complaint to the son, but hoped that someday his son would not call him Dad, but like his stepfather, Father. Max thought the father was closer in spirit than the father, so he had his son's jealousy of his stepfather. Max didn't want to see Leslie every day, so he changed jobs too. Now Max was teaching at the university he and Emma attended, increasing his knowledge and ranks. Time did not pass, but ran. As with all of us, my dear readers, each of our heroes lived as they wanted or as they could. Leslie was happily married and had a real family with a daughter in addition to Harvey. Harvey grew up a handsome boy, similar to Max, went to the university where Max, his father, the youngest professor at the university, teaches. Only now, Harvey learned how respected his father was for his knowledge and intelligence, was proud of him and began calling him by his middle name. Harvey, Max resented him. "Just call me father, if it's not too much trouble. I'm not Max, I'm your father. Can you do that? Not Dad, not Max Andreevich, but father. I've been meaning to ask you that for a long time." "All right, father, but this is in private, but in public, Max." "Good," laughed Max and hugged his son. Gradually, the relationship between Max and Harvey became more trusting and grew into a strong, masculine friendship, which is important for a grown son and father. Harvey was proud of the father and the father proud of the son. Leslie was even a little jealous of Harvey's father because the son almost lived at his father's house. But then she realized that Max was still a real father and would not teach Harvey bad things. If Max had been a Sunday dad before, now he felt like a real father to his son. Harvey disappeared from his father's house and often came not alone, but with his friends, and then there was a tea party with arguments on all sorts of subjects. Max pulled the youth to the knowledge he could give them, and they in their turn helped the professor to understand what young people were like now, what they aspired to, what they needed from life, and together with them Max grew younger in spirit. Today Harvey came with a friend whom Max had never seen before. Young people, students, they have a lot of friends or buddies, and so Max was not surprised at his son's new buddy. The guy seemed familiar to him. No, not that Max knew him, but he had seen him somewhere before. "Max," he turned to Harvey's acquaintance, "do you study at our university with my son?" "No," Max's namesake answered. "I study at the med school." Colia, and I met at a party at a girl's house, who turned out to be our mutual acquaintance. No, Max had never been to med school. It wasn't his major. He'd seen this guy somewhere else. Well, he had seen him, so why bother? But he tried to remember where and under what circumstances he had seen him and couldn't remember. Was his phenomenal memory beginning to fail him? Max couldn't remember where he'd seen this guy, but then he gave up on these pointless endeavors, giving his brain a chance to remember on its own. That's how it happens when you don't think, and then a picture or some words that answer a question pops up. Every time Harvey came with Max, and he came with him more and more often, Max would ask himself, where could I have seen him? It seemed to Max that something not good was connected to this guy, so he was concerned. Suddenly, Harvey had gotten involved with someone who could get him into something. With each visit Max made to this house, Max's anxiety grew. He often asked Harvey about Max in great detail, surprising his son. "He's a great kid, Dad." Harvey laughed at his father's anxiety. "What are you getting at him for? What's with all the questioning?" "I'll tell you right now, Max is my best friend. We're like brothers. When people see us together, that's what they think. Max and I laugh and make fun of each other, unless we were separated in the hospital and given to different mothers." "Were you born on the same day?" Max was surprised. "No, of course not. We say that for fun. Max is 5 months younger than me." Harvey's words made Max's soul even more anxious, and something in his heart twitched. "Like brothers. God, they do look like Harvey, and Harvey looks like me. A son?" Max both believed and disbelieved his discovery. If he hadn't looked at Max much before, now that he was coming with Colia, he would question him until he was sure that his suspicions had no basis in fact. Or did they? Max was worried, and the more he compared Harvey and Max, the more his heart beat faster and louder. The boys were drinking tea, talking, trying to get Max to join in the conversation, and he was blushing and pale, and he hadn't noticed how similar Harvey and Max were, even their gestures, except that Max had the almond-shaped, dark brown eyes of his mother, Emma, and so Max was a copy of Max. "Father, what's wrong?" asked a worried Harvey. "Are you sick? Why are you so pale?" "I don't know," Max replied, confused. "Yeah, I'm a little sick. I think my blood pressure's up. I get that." "Dad, you can't joke with blood pressure, but there's medicine." "Do you have medicine?" "You communicate. I'll be right there." "You communicate," said Max, confused. "Maybe an ambulance?" Max was worried. In his eyes he saw the same anxiety as in his mother's when she was worried about something. No, I'll take some medicine and it'll go away." Max didn't leave the room for the boys in the kitchen. He needed time to calm down, and the next time Harvey's friend came over, he would ask him a good question about everything. Everything: who his mother was, where they lived, and who his father was after all. Although Max was pretty sure Max was his son, his and Emma's. Only today he saw Max, a carbon copy of him when he was young. Only his mother's eyes, eyes of incredible beauty, memorable eyes. Nowhere and never had Max seen his namesake. He just recognized him, recognized his genes in Max. Now all that was left was to clarify. Though without clarification, he was sure Max was his son. "Dad, I'll stay at your place tonight." Harvey pulled Max out of his thoughts. "I saw Max off. I called my mom. I'm fine now, but thank you, Harvey. Thank you for having you." Max's eyes moistened and he turned away from his son, hiding his tears. "What are you, Dad? Are you sick? Is it worse?" "No, Harvey, I feel good now, because I have you." Max remembered how unhappy he had been when a woman he didn't love gave birth to this son and was ashamed of those thoughts. Now he was grateful to her for Kolka, very grateful. He would be good if he didn't have Harvey, if he didn't have a soulmate, and so he has a son, and he is sure that he has more than one son. And why did Harvey single Max out among all the other guys and bring him to Max Andreevich? A mystery? Or maybe Max knows he's my son, and maybe his visits to me are not accidental, Max thought, and we don't need to find out everything and complicate things, but just talk. Talk openly. "What's your patronymic, Max?" Out of the blue, Max asked his son's friend. "Max, Harvey's friend," Max answered in surprise. And Max's heart jumped, pumping to his throat, ready to jump out of his chest. "No, He'd expected to hear that, of course, but it was still unsettling and joyful at the same time, and he wasn't responsible for his heart right now. Emma had given her son her last name, which meant she'd gotten her maiden name back. "And the mom's name is Emma," Max said affirmatively. "Yes, Emma," Max answered, even more confused. "Dad, what's with the interrogation?" Harvey was surprised. "We studied together with Max's mom in the same group. Did Emma tell you anything about me?" "Nothing. My mom just said she'd gone to school in this town." Max was afraid to tell Max what was important. How would the guy take the news? Would he think he was crazy? He couldn't open up to Max and admit that he was his father. That was Emma's privilege. Maybe he'd ruin Emma and their son's life by admitting he was the father. He's glad that's how he found out about him. "And Mom is here now," Max said, smiling. "She came to visit me. She misses me. So I'm sorry, I'll be with you for a while today. Mom's waiting. I promised to go for a walk with her today." Max's heart beat even more often and louder. Emma is here. Emma, the love of his life. A love like this, or even like this, he had never met again. He blushed and could barely speak. "Max, can you give me Mom's phone number? We would meet on old friendship. Remember the old days? We have a lot to remember." "Sure, Max, write it down. Although my mom forbids me to give out my number without her knowledge, but I think she'll be happy to hear from you. I mean, the college years are the best years of our lives." "Yes, we have a lot to remember," Max said quietly. "You don't tell your mom about me yet. I want it to be a surprise for her." "Got it?" Max smiled. Mom loves surprises. "Hello, Emma." "Yes," answered confusedly on the other end of the connection. She recognized his phone number, but how did he know? "Emma, hi," only he called her that. "Hi, Max. Did you recognize it?" "I recognize it. What's there to recognize? I remember your phone number well, and your voice is pretty recognizable. I know you're here, so let's meet up. Let's reminisce about the old days." "The last thing I want to do is reminisce. Let's talk about something else. I'm sure we have a lot to talk about." Emma was silent. Does he know about his son? She thought. And then she reassured herself. No, how could he know? There's nothing to worry about. "Max, I'm sure there's nothing to talk about. What's past is past and gone. We don't need to dredge up the past." I don't want to beat around the bush. Can we talk about our son?" Emma was so hot. She didn't know what to say. "Why don't you say something, Emma? I know our son well, and Max is in my house." "No." Emma shouted, "Max, stay out of our life. You have no place in it. Do you realize that? You kept your son from me." "Emma, why? Were you getting back at me and Max for our failed marriage? Or did you find him another father?" "God, how could this happen?" Emma couldn't stand it. "How could you find out and find him?" "I don't know. I guess it was God's will that we should meet." "Harvey, my son, whom you used to curse, brought Max to me. They're friends." "That's right, Emma. But don't worry. The boys don't know what you and I know. You're a mother, and I think you should introduce us to each other. Introduce me as a father. That Max is my son. I already know that. I wouldn't dare do that without you knowing." "Have courage, Emma. Do it, I beg you. If you don't want us to talk to Max, it won't work. He's a big boy, and he can decide whether he wants to talk to me or not." "You're right. Let's meet you first," Emma suggested. "Talk, discuss. I don't know how Max will take it, because for him, his father's dead." "What? Did you bury me already?" "Emma, how bloodthirsty you are," laughed Max. "I recognize you. I recognize your unpredictable actions. You beat me to it. I wanted to make a date with you myself, but you attacked me so much that I got confused." "Who attacked who? Where would you like to meet?" "Downtown at the Drama Theater." "So tonight, at the Drama Theater, 1800. How about a play? Do you want to?" "I'd love to. It's been ages since I've been to the theater." At the theater, crowded theatergoers, someone who was waiting for someone who asked for an extra ticket, but she stood out among the crowds of people. To say that time had not worked on her was to lie to himself, but it seemed to him that he would have recognized her even at 100 years of age. Loved ones are recognized no matter what they are. She was sitting on a bench under a sheared maple tree, squinting at the people hanging around the theater. Max sat down next to her, and only then did she see him. He hugged Emma. kissed her cheek, and caught the smell of her that always disturbed him, the smell of a native beloved woman. How much he missed that smell. No woman, and how many Max had, he didn't count, had ever smelled like Emma. And it wasn't just perfume, it was her body odor. "Hi," Emma said, confused. "Oh, I forgot. I saw you and forgot flowers. Here you go, your favorite." She took a bouquet of lilacs mixed with white peonies, brought them up to her face and breathed in their fragrance and closed her eyes. "God, what a fragrance," Emma said with her eyes closed, smiling. "Do you remember my favorite flowers?" I remember everything. I just never forgot. Why don't we forget the theater and go to my place, Emma?" "I forgot." She opened her eyes and stared at Max. "I forgot. I've forgotten you even existed. If you hadn't reminded me, why are you lying to me now? And more importantly, to yourself. Our son is like me. How could you forget about me? He's my reminder." "Come on." She got up from the bench. "We have a play to go to." Emma was next to him. He couldn't see much of the play. He was holding her hand, and when she tried to release her hand from his, he held it and whispered in her ear, "Please don't deprive me of this at least." Usually after a play, people discuss the play, but his and Emma's life play, Max cared much more about than the play on stage. "How long are you here for?" Max asked. "A week. It's been 2 days. I'll leave in 5 days. "So little time," Max said. "So little time we have. We used to have a lot of it, but someone didn't appreciate it. Emma, let's not blame each other for what we had, but now I know that I have a son, our son. Will you introduce us to each other?" "I'll introduce him, but not out of the blue. First, I'll prepare him for you." "What's there to prepare him for?" "There's me, there's him, and there's you as a link." "Oh shit, I forgot. I'm dead. I have to be resurrected first." "Yeah," Emma laughed. Max put his arms around her and kissed her. She pulled away from him. "What's that for? I'm going to introduce you to my son anyway. And this is all unnecessary. It's stronger than me, Emma. When you're around, I'm drawn to you and it's inexplicable. It's always been inexplicable to me." He wanted to tell her that he loved only her, but then he thought it was too much for the first night. They wandered around the city at night for a long time, remembering the places that connected them, discussing how and what had changed in the city. Max wanted to ask if she was married, but he was afraid to get an affirmative answer, so he pushed the question back. "Call Max. Tell them you're spending the night at our mutual friend's house." Max asked Emma, "Let's go to my place." "No, Max, don't. I'm sorry. Are you married?" "No, I'm not married. I was after you, but unfortunately, we didn't have kids and he really wanted kids, so we broke up. Then while we're alive, what's keeping you and me from sinning?" "Emma, I've never loved anyone else like that. You were the one." She looked at him suspiciously. "Not if you think." "No, I'd had women, but they weren't the same. That's why I never married." "To hell with you," Emma interrupted him abruptly. "Let's go to your place." Emma left Max in the morning and promised to talk to her son today, to tell him who his father was. Max was excited and glad that Emma didn't oppose his communication with his son. But how would Max, who was already an adult, take it? Maybe once he knew who his father was, he wouldn't want to see him again. What about his friendship with Kolia? And Emma, she'd be leaving soon, and he wasn't ready to part with her. He found her again. He needed her, it seemed to him. And Emma, how does she feel about everything that's going on between them right now? And that question kept him wondering. Right now, there were more questions than answers in Max's life, and it was stirring him, keeping him in suspense. Right now, he didn't know whether his relationship with his son or with Emma was more important. They were inseparable to him. He was afraid that Max wouldn't forgive him for his long years of absence, but he would do his best to find his son. Max had promised not to call Emma today, but in the evening he couldn't stand it and dialed her number. She didn't answer, and from these worries of his, he couldn't find a place to go. The bell rang, and in excitement, Max grabbed the phone, but then realized it was the doorbell. Standing in front of him, panting, was his and Emma's son. The way Max looked at him, he realized Emma had told him everything. "Hello, Max," said the son. "I found out. My mom told me." Come on, Max. Their awkwardness in front of each other was getting in the way, and if they had been at ease before, now it was difficult. "Are you really my Max looked away and nervously clenched and unclenched his fists. It was true, the awkwardness was growing. They didn't know how to act around each other. And Harvey is my brother. It turns out so, son, Max answered, and only now his son looked at him. Mom said you didn't know about me, Max said, confused. Max realized that it was hard for his son to say all this. He just walked over to him, hugged him, and Max hugged his father. He hugged his father out of politeness, because Max had recently only been Harvey's father, and now it turned out he was his father too. Max felt that the hug was premature for his son Max, so he let him go and said, "Would I have allowed such a long separation from you if I had known I had you, Max?" Max asked in a trembling voice, "So if I hadn't met Harvey, you wouldn't have known about me?" "It turns out so, but don't blame Mom for that. It's my fault too. Mom told me everything. She wanted to tell you about me when I was just born, but my grandfather told her not to. He said it would be better for me if you died. I'm sorry." Mom was afraid to disobey him, but now we know that we have each other, smiled the son with Max's smile, and grandfather is not a hindrance to us. Is he alive? Who is grandfather? Max laughed. He is alive, and he is still trying to command us all. We pretend to be his subordinates, of course, but I think he realizes that. Still, he's not going to give up his colonel ways. Max looked at his son, listening to him. With what warmth he speaks about Artur Veniaminovich, and this is his son, and he is proud of him, proud, though it was not he who brought him up like that, but his genes are his, and therefore he has the right to be proud of him. Max, I'm really glad Harvey found us for each other. I know young people like to live apart from adults, but I want to offer you a place to move in with me. When Mom leaves, you can move in. 2 rooms will be enough for you and me. What do you think? It's so sudden, I don't know. I'll think about it. And if you don't want to live with me, I'll pay for your rent." Max looked seriously at his son and added, "I owe you a lot, son. If you don't mind, call me father. I realize I don't deserve to be called that yet, but I'll try to be a real father to you." "Okay," Max said, embarrassed. "I'll try. Dad, I'm going to Kolya's now. Doesn't he know yet?" "No, he doesn't know yet," replied Max. "I think he'll be happy to hear the news." "He'll be shocked. Everyone will be shocked," Max said. "Harvey and I are brothers. It's unbelievable. It's a good thing it's not April 1st, or no one would believe us, and they won't. Well, I'm off, huh?" "All right, son." "Harvey, hi. Why don't you come in?" "No, Dad," Max said, and blushed. It's not easy for him to say this unfamiliar word. "We're going to a friend's birthday party." Max ran off and he called Emma. This time she answered. "Emma, thank you. I don't know how you told Max our story, but he's not bitter. He hasn't said a word to me. It's hard for him, but he recognized me as a father and called me father. Thank you, my family." Max was touched. Emma was silent. "Emma, my darling little man, let's meet. Please don't refuse me. Max has gone to Harvey and I want to share my joy with you. Shall we go to the restaurant? Who's holding us back? Let's go." "To hell with you. Let's go," Emma agreed. "You're not gonna get away with it." "I'm not," laughed Max. "I love you, Emma. Stop lying." "I'm not lying." "Don't go away," Emma woke up the next day in the morning, asked Max. "Let's forgive each other for past offenses and be together." "And I have long forgiven you," said Emma. "Otherwise I would not have met you and certainly would not wake up in the morning with you in the same bed. But living with you, Max, that's a no." "Why, Emma? Why, Emma? We're not children. We've learned, we've realized. We can live the second half of our lives happily. I'm sure we can and we should. I'll take you in my arms and I won't let you go." Max held Emma tightly to him. "You're my Emma, you're mine. I won't give you to anyone." "No one's taking you away," she laughed. "I'll go away. I'll go away." We Max are used to living alone, and at our age it's hard to change habits. "Difficult but possible," Max parried. "Don't give up on you and me so easily." "No, Max, no. While I'm here, these last 3 days, or rather nights, I'll be with you. But then I'll leave. My life, my job, my family is out there, not here. This is where our son Max and I are. Max will graduate from the academy, come home." "Who said that?" "Your father. Maybe he'll want to stay here. Don't piss me off, and let's not bring my dad into this. Don't make me give up on seeing you for the last time. I'm sorry. You just let Max make his own choices. Please don't push him." Emma paused for a moment, then added, "Max still has almost 5 more years of schooling, and a lot can change in that time." She left. Max couldn't stop her. With the appearance of his son and Emma, Max's life seemed clear to him. Here was his son. Here was his beloved in him. Why break up? Why complicate an already complicated life? After all, happiness was so close. It was only necessary to press against each other, to trust and not to part. Max called Emma almost every day. Sometimes she answered the phone, sometimes she didn't. He tried to give her back, but she didn't believe in their happy tomorrow, so she nipped these conversations in the bud. For the first 3 weeks, Emma answered Max's calls, but then she suddenly stopped answering. He often, even obsessively called, and she either dropped the call or Max got an answering machine. The subscriber is temporarily unavailable. He couldn't reach Emma for a week. "Max, is everything okay with Mom?" Max asked his son when they came to him with cholia. "I call. She does not answer. I'm worried." "Everything is fine," Max answered. "I talked to her on the phone today. Can I give her a message?" "No, nothing. I thought maybe she was sick and couldn't answer me." "I'll tell her you're worried, Dad, and Mom will call you back." "Don't, Max, just as long as she's fine, and everything else is just vanity," Max said sadly. The son did not hide the sad notes in his father's voice, and he said to support him, "Mom does not talk to me for a long time. She has a lot of work now, the end of the quarter." Of course, son." Max smiled at his son. "I understand. Work is work." Max knew that work had nothing to do with it. What did he want? Emma was still a young and beautiful woman, and she could very well have her own personal life, and he was a stupid moron. What was he hoping for? That she'd just swoop in and stay with him. He's a romantic. He's a dreamer. After 2 weeks of silence, Emma called Max herself. "Hi," she said, as if nothing had happened. "You called?" "I know. I was worried," Max told me. She didn't want to talk to anyone but Max. "Hi," Max said, resentfully, "but you could have answered. Just answer. Or am I that disgusting to you?" "Calm down, Max," she said. "I needed time to think about it, but I couldn't think of anything." "What's there to think of?" "I'm pregnant." She was silent, and he was silent from the shock of the words Emma had said. "Max, I'm pregnant," Emma repeated. You mean, Max woke up. "Yes. Why would I be telling you this if you weren't the reason I'm pregnant?" "Jesus, Emma," muttered Max. "I'm in shock to say the least." "And me? Do you realize how shocked I am? My sweet Emma, we're having a baby. Do you realize what you're saying? Max, I'm almost 44 years old. So, Emma, wait, are you saying there won't be one? Again? Are you trying to kill our baby again?" "I don't know." "Max, no, of course I don't want to, but, I know, Emma. Don't you dare do this. We were given a baby by a higher power to make up for our mistakes and be together. What will people think? What will Daddy say?" "Emma, we don't care what anyone says or what anyone thinks. It's our baby. It's our life. I'm coming for you tomorrow. Do you hear me?" She was silent. He could hear her crying. "Don't cry, Emma. It's not good for you to cry. Even if you don't let me come for you, I'll still come." "Come." Emma laughed through her tears. "As you were a troublemaker, you are still a troublemaker. I'll be whatever you want me to be, just to be near you and our children. Stay as you are. I love you as you are," Emma said quietly.